Go ahead and call the Military Personnel Subcommittee meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everyone to the first hearing of the Military Personnel Subcommittee for the 114th Congress. I especially want to welcome the new members of the subcommittee and look forward to working with each of you during the coming year. Very pleased that Congresswoman Susan Davis from California will continue to be the subcommittee ranking member. Over the past 4 years, I have valued her years of experience on the subcommittee as chairwoman and as ranking member. Look forward to working with you as well as we shape the work of the subcommittee over the next year. The past several days have been very busy with the release of the Military Compensation and Retirement Modernization Commission's report and the President's budget for fiscal year 2016. I know that the information in both of these documents are at the forefront of everyone's mind, and I want to assure everyone that the Military Personnel Subcommittee will have several opportunities to thoroughly review and discuss them in the coming months. But today we meet to continue the subcommittee's effort to improve the care of injured and wounded troops as they recover and transition either back to duty or to civilian life. The Department of Defense and the military services have had many years to develop the policies and programs to assist wounded, ill, and injured warriors and their families through the recovery process. I recognize that this was and continues to be a tremendous effort by very dedicated and professional individuals, both military and civilian, that crosses all military communities. However, it has not been without its fits and starts and has not been without problems. Our purpose today is to learn the current state of the Wounded Warrior programs. I'm interested to know whether the programs still serve the needs of the wounded, ill, and injured service members and their families. Are they viewed by DoD and the services as enduring programs? Or are there plans to reevaluate the need for such programs in their current state as the mission in Afghanistan winds down and those deployments taper off? I'm interested in hearing the witnesses' views on these questions. Before I introduce our panel, let me offer Congresswoman Davis an opportunity to make opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I certainly look forward to your very dedicated leadership. Glad you're here. I also wanted to welcome Mr. Rodriguez, Brigadier General Doherty, Colonel Toner, Captain Braining, I have it right, and Mr. Williamson. After more than 13 years of combat, the military has significantly reduced the number of service members in direct combat, but we still have many military members in harm's way with a real risk to being wounded. The military services in Congress have provided ample needed resources to help organize and care for our wounded military and their families as they either transition out of the military or become healthy enough to continue to serve. And as the population of the services of Wounded Warrior programs has been reduced, I'm concerned that we will lose focus on providing care for those who truly need it, especially as fiscal pressures continue. So I look forward to hearing from our witnesses today on whether the policies that were instituted in 2009 are still applicable today, and what do you all think we should do to ensure the Wounded Warrior programs assist the intended personnel. Thank you very much, and thank you for your leadership as well.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. We are joined today by an outstanding panel. We'd like to give each witness the opportunity to present his or her testimony and each member an opportunity to question the witnesses. I would respectfully remind the witnesses that you should summarize, to the greatest extent possible, the high points of your written testimony in 5 minutes. I assure you that your written comments and statements will be made part of the hearing record. So let me welcome our panel. We have Mr. James Rodriguez, Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Warrior Care Policy, Brigadier General Patrick Dougherty, Director, Air Force Services, United States Air Force, Colonel Chris Toner, Commander, Warrior Transition Command of the United States Army, Captain Brent Brining, Director, Navy Wounded Warrior Safe Harbor, the United States Navy, and Paul Williamson, Command Advisor, Wounded Warrior Regiment of the United States Marine Corps. Secretary Rodriguez, the time is yours.
Chairman Heck, Ranking Member Davis, distinguished members of the subcommittee, thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today to discuss the Department of Defense's Wounded Warrior programs. One of the department's highest priorities is ensuring the nation's wounded, ill, and injured service members, their families, and caregivers receive the support they need for recovery, rehabilitation, and reintegration. Today, our major combat operations are declining, but our national security challenges and responsibilities endure. Therefore, we are resolute in ensuring all the needs of our wounded warriors are met and they have the best available care and administrative management while being treated with dignity and respect from point of injury or illness to return to duty or transition from service. The Office of Warrior Care Policy provides concise policy oversight that allows the services to deliver consistent, high-quality care and support for recovering service members. We are conducting site assistance visits to assist the Wounded Warrior programs with Department of Defense policy, compliance for recovery care at the installation level, and we have established a quality assurance program to standardize all services disability evaluation requirements. Additionally, we provide non-medical programs that support service member engagement in adaptive sports and activities, professional skill building, internships, and employment preparation to assist in the recovery and transition process. DoD has also developed information technology systems to streamline case management, established the Caregiver Support Initiative to provide peer-to-peer forums for caregivers, and formed the Interagency Care Coordination Committee to update existing DoD VA processes to deliver benefits and services in a more accurate and timely manner. Even as our nation reduces combat operations, our wounded, ill, and injured service members will continue to exist, and we must ensure our commitment to these individuals is not compromised. The American public and our leaders require it, and our service members and their families deserve the best services and support we can provide. Thank you for your support of the brave men and women who serve our nation and your dedication to ensuring the services have the most efficient systems in place to care for wounded, ill, or injured and recovering service members. And I look forward to your questions.
Chairman Heck, Ranking Member Davis, and distinguished members of this committee, thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today to discuss the Army's Warrior Care and Transition Program and to inform you of Army initiatives to address our wounded, ill, and injured soldiers and their families. Since their inception in June 2007, Warrior Transition Units have helped over 65,000 soldiers to heal and transition. Today, the Warrior Care and Transition Program consists of 25 Warrior Transition Units, supported by military and civilian cadre, on installations throughout the United States and in Germany. Within the WTUs, soldiers receive personalized support from a triad of care. This includes a nurse case manager, a squad leader, and a primary care manager. This triad of care coordinates clinical and non-clinical issues to successfully transition the soldier and their families either back to the force or onward towards successful civilian lives. With the support of our committed and dedicated cadre, clinicians, and staff, our soldiers and families are assisted to take an in-depth and a realistic look at where they are today and where they want to go along their road to recovery. This process is referred to as the Comprehensive Transition Plan, or CTP. The CTP is the overarching methodology to support a soldier's rehabilitation and ultimately reintegration back to the force or to the community as a productive veteran. The CTP is developed by the soldier, for the soldier, and is a future-oriented action plan to establish goals that map a soldier's transition plan towards self-reliance and independence. The soldier owns their CTP, and it empowers them to take charge of their own transition with the support of their family, cadre, clinicians, and specialized staff members. The Warrior Care and Transition Program remains a highly effective program, and there are many success stories. Though the Warrior Care and Transition Program is seeing fewer wounded and more ill and injured soldiers, the WTU population remains complex, and the need for the Army to continue to resource and provide centralized oversight, guidance, and advocacy for this population will remain an enduring requirement. We've come a long way since the days of the medical holding company and long wait times for our injured soldiers. We will not return to that setting. Warrior care remains an Army priority and our sacred obligation. Again, thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today to discuss the Army's enduring commitment to the care of our wounded, ill, and injured soldiers and their families, and I look forward to your questions.
Chairman Heck, Ranking Member Davis, distinguished members of the subcommittee, thank you for the opportunity to testify before you today. I'm Captain Brent Browning, Director of Navy Wounded Warrior Safe Harbor, the non-medical recovery care program for the Navy and Coast Guard. Since its establishment in 2005, Navy Safe Harbor has strived to provide the very best in non-medical care for seriously wounded, ill, and injured sailors and Coast Guardsmen, their families, and caregivers. 9 years later, Navy Safe Harbor enrollments have grown more than tenfold. Its staff of non-medical care managers and recovery care coordinators are located in military treatment facilities and Department of Veterans Affairs polytrauma rehabilitation centers across the nation. As of January 1st, 2015, Navy Safe Harbor supported 3,283 service members. As you may know, enrollment is extended to active duty and reserve sailors and Coast Guardsmen with service-connected serious injury sustained while in the line of duty, including combat wounds, shipboard and shoreside training accidents, liberty accidents, and motorcycle vehicular accidents. Sailors and Coast Guardsmen diagnosed with a serious illness such as cancer, brain disease, stroke, or post-traumatic stress are also eligible for enrollment. Only 19% of Navy Safe Harbor enrollees are combat wounded. The vast majority are enrolled as a result of non-combat conditions. Because of the size of its population and relatively lower incidence of combat exposure, the Navy has employed a decentralized program for providing wounded warrior support, with enrolled sailors and Coast Guardsmen remaining attached to their parent commands. Navy Safe Harbor support includes, but is not limited to, comprehensive recovery plan development, addressing pay and personnel issues, connecting family members and caregivers with available support resources, providing adaptive sports and recreational opportunities, and linking enrollees to education and job training benefits. Navy Safe Harbor has experienced continuous program growth since its inception, increasing by 19% in fiscal year 2013 and 34% in fiscal year 2014. This growth is a result of increased awareness across the fleet due to an effective outreach and marketing campaign, as well as an observed change in attitude of Navy and Coast Guard service members willing to overcome the stigma of seeking help. The program will likely continue to grow commensurate with the average rate of incidence of serious illness and injury across the fleet. The Navy Safe Harbor program addresses an enduring need and must remain capable of responding when or if the nation engages in a future conflict. I thank you again for holding this hearing and continuing to shed light on these important issues. I look forward to answering your questions.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. It's an honor and a privilege to be speaking with you this afternoon about the incredible men and women of the United States Air Force who are recovering from combat wounds, serious injuries, and debilitating and life-threatening illnesses, and the focused efforts of the Air Force Wounded Warrior Program. At the start of 2015, we have 4,165 airmen enrolled in our Wounded Warrior Program. The goal of our program is to assist our airmen and their caregivers through recovery and rehabilitation, helping them reach the best level of self-sufficiency they can attain and always being available in the event they are in need of assistance anytime in the future. Our program is designed to help our airmen face devastating situations and overcome adversity they may encounter. We hope to prepare them to return to duty if their situation allows, or prepare them for a successful life of purpose out of uniform. Our success is counted not by numbers, but by the ability of our airmen to realize that an abundant life is ahead of them and to see them set their focus on each day ahead and succeed in taking that first step to recovery. But through it all, we realize, because each person is different, we will face situations with them and their families we may not have seen before. So we are always seeking and implementing improvements to the continuum of care. We have developed our program to be flexible and adaptable to adjust our program to meet the needs of our wounded, ill, and injured airmen. We are proud of the airmen and the efforts of our professionals that care for them. The Air Force is totally committed to ensuring our nation's sons and daughters who voluntarily raise their right hands to defend this great nation, and specifically our wounded, ill, and injured, are cared for with the utmost compassion, skill, and dedication. That is our sacred trust, and that is what we will always keep as one of our top priorities. Thank you for your keen insights and endless support for our airmen, and in particular, our wounded warriors, ill and injured. I look forward to your questions.
Ranking Chairman Heck, Ranking Member Davis, and distinguished members of the subcommittee, it is my privilege to appear before you today to discuss the service and support provided to our Marine Corps' wounded, ill, and injured Marines and their families through the Wounded Warrior Regiment. I have served in the Department of the Navy for more than 45 years. In that time, many positive changes have been made in how we care for our servicemen and women and their families, especially our wounded warriors. I can report to you today that the quality of care provided to your Marines has never been better. The best recovery care for complex cases requires a coordinated team approach. In the Marine Corps, we find success by placing warrior care under the leadership of a commander who has the responsibility, authority, and accountability for the health and welfare of those in his command. Our common objectives in Warrior Care have enhanced the partnership of the Marine Corps, Navy Medicine, the Department of Veterans Affairs, Department of Defense, and other services in ways that had not existed in the past. We are united by a common goal to ensure comprehensive recovery care for our Marines from the onset of their illness or injury through all phases of recovery and transition. Warrior Care is not a process, but rather an individual relationship that exists between the recovering Marine and the family and the recovery care team. To ensure that we remain responsive to their needs, the Marine Corps seeks to be informed by the voice of our wounded warrior and their family. Annual care coordination surveys, town hall meetings, focus group, and social media feedback provide valuable input, which has resulted in additional capabilities and refinements of existing ones. As we focus on our current drawdown, fiscal pressures, and other important issues, one wonders about the future of Warrior Care. Our Commandant's 2015 planning guidance addresses the matter very clearly and succinctly. Our commitment to our wounded Marines and their families is unwavering. I look forward to answering your questions today, and I thank you for bringing us forward to address you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you all for your testimony. We'll now begin with a five-minute round of questioning by the members, and I'll start off. Secretary Rodriguez, given that each military service has a unique program to provide support to recovering service members and their families, how does DoD ensure that the service programs are meeting the needs of the wounded warriors? So what's DoD's role when problems or deficiencies are identified in a service wounded warrior program?
Mr. Chairman, thank you for that question. And I assure you that DoD takes our role very seriously, and we have policy oversight of the programs that are being executed by all of the services. One way we do that is by conducting site assist visits within each of the services. In 2014, we conducted 27 site assistance visits, again, with each one of the services. And during the site assist visits, we reviewed the services policies on care, transition, the transition programs, as well as their care management as well. We wanted to ensure that they have a process in place that meets all of the standards required as set forth in the policy.
So DoD has an overarching policy that each one of the service programs needs to meet. When you go out and do those site visits, what's the metrics that you're using to evaluate the service programs?
So DoD has an overarching policy, yes, sir. And so when we do the site assist visits, we ensure that, again, that they are meeting the standards set forth in that particular policy.
And if you find a site visit where the policy prescriptive guidance is not being met, what actions are taken? What's the procedure for corrective action?
Understanding that there's always areas for improvement, we work directly with the leadership at the sites, and while we're conducting the site assistance visits, we have leadership representation there with us. Upon completion of the site assist visits, we provide a report to the leadership. Upon completion of that report, we have 30 days for the leadership to respond on how they plan to implement those program revisions. And then we go back in 2015, we're going back and we're going to look at each additional site that we visited in 14 to ensure that those policies and or revisions are put in place.
All right, thank you. Colonel Toner, there's been some recent reporting of some issues at some of the WTUs, specifically down in Texas. How has the Warrior Transition Command responded to those concerns, and what role has the ombudsman position played in answering those concerns?
Yes, sir. So just a summary, the concerns largely associated with disrespect, harassment, belittlement of soldiers within the 3 WTUs in Texas. And so it's important to know that the information that generated the reporting coming out of this was our own oversight program. So our ombudsman report that you alluded to was provided to the investigative team. And so at the end of the day, it concerns me, and I take very seriously when I have a soldier or a family member that does not believe that they've received the world-class care that they deserve, or they believe that they were belittled or harassed in any way, that's a serious concern to me, first and foremost. My expectation is all soldiers and family members are treated with dignity and respect. Coming out of the report and the things that we addressed, so prior to the publishing of the article and the series of reports out of Texas, the Sergeant Major and I went down to Texas and visited each of the WTUs down there because I personally wanted to get an assessment of whether or not we had issues. They were off track in terms of policy and procedures. And so we went down to Fort Bliss, Fort Hood, and Brooke Army Medical Center and visited the WTUs down there. And it was not a white glove visit by any means or account. This was the Sergeant Major and I holding sensing sessions with family members, cadre, service members, clinicians down there to understand if we had a resident problem. It's important to note that the material that was provided to the reporter was from the 2009 to 2013 timeframe, and certainly those conditions existed as what was in the ombudsman report. It's important to also note that those ombudsman's reports were resolved to satisfaction of the soldier and satisfaction of the chain of command in each one of those instances. At the end of the day, what's important to me is that, again, we have a world-class program and the soldiers feel like they're getting the support they need. And what's also important to me is that we maintain our oversight. And so we have a robust oversight program that allows us to maintain visibility and from the feedback of those soldiers and family members through the ombudsman program. Sergeant Major and I get those reports every day, as does the chain of command. And it's important that we can rapidly react to soldier and family issues. But more importantly, if we have some sort of policy or procedural issue that's indicating some sort of trend or systematic problem in the program, we can address that immediately.
So based on the cluster that you found in Texas, do you feel or did you get any reports from other WTUs, either CONUS or OCONUS?
So within the context of the reporting, 2009 to 2013, I think if you look at all the WTUs, you'll see kind of the similar types of issues and challenges. And that's everything from a soldier issued in their disability rating to administrative stuff. So I think if you look at the program in total, you'll see a lot of the same challenges out there. I've been to 7 WTUs. I've been in command about 6 months, been to 7 of the WTUs. We're getting ready to hit out on another round out there. We do organizational inspection programs, which is a 5 to 7 day, 17-person process where we get out there and take a look at it. I'm confident that the program and policies and procedures that are in place now have the program going in the right direction. But again, more importantly, that we have the oversight out there in case we have some sort of a challenge within the program, we can address it immediately.
Thank you. Ms. Davis?
Thank you. And again, thank you all for being here. I wonder if you could speak to the extent to which the population of service members that are participating in the Wounded Warrior programs has changed. We know it has changed to some extent, and I wondered about the enrollment process particularly, and who is included, who is not included, eligibility in terms of the seriousness of wounds. Mr. Rodriguez, you might have the overall view of that, but I wondered whether, do you know are there major differences in the services in terms of enrollment and the proportion, I guess, of the populations, wounded warriors from the Iraq and Afghanistan war particularly, or injuries that people have suffered in the course of their careers?
Thank you for your question, ma'am. And as you mentioned, I believe my colleagues from the services can probably speak more diligently about their individual processes within the services. But I can tell you from an OSD standpoint, we have noticed that the service members that are becoming part of the WTU population are in the injured and ill category now. Understanding that, again, each service member's injury and illness is unique, and the process in which they arrive in the WTUs or warrior care programs is a unique process as well. We want to ensure that every service member has the opportunity to be part of the program and receive all of the care and or resources that are available within the WTUs or the warrior care programs in general.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know whether, if you want to just speak briefly about that, is there something that jumps out at you in terms of the way that your programs are progressing right now that may be different from what it was a few years ago?
Yes, ma'am, and again, I appreciate the question. Let me give you a snapshot right now, if you can see at the program where we are right now. So the Army has 4,139 soldiers in the program. Of that 4,139, 1,863 are active duty, so that's about 45%. So we have 55% are reserve component, a balance of National Guard and reserve. Of that total population, 81% of that over 4,000 have deployed. That doesn't mean their condition is related to a deployment. That means they have deployed. I think another interesting statistic you'll probably be appreciative of is almost 2,000 of those soldiers, so about 47%, have some sort of diagnosis for PTS or behavioral health. It could be a primary, secondary, or tertiary diagnosis. And of that, 84% have been deployed. So that's kind of representative of the population right now. With respect to your question on intakes and enrollments, I think, who gets in the program, there is a difference in the Army program with respect to an active duty soldier and a reserve component soldier. So an active duty soldier, to get into the Warrior Transition Unit, you're looking at, just generally speaking, 6 months of complex care requirement. So they have a profile that prohibits them from doing their military occupational specialty. They require some sort of complex clinical care, and they're allowed to come into the program. Now, I would caveat that with senior mission commanders can enter somebody into the program from active duty. So for instance, if you have a soldier that has some sort of severe behavioral health incident or issue, that commander may designate that that individual gets the focused clinical care that is resident in the WTU, and they can enter them in the program. For the reserve component, there's a difference. And so a reserve component soldier, if they require more than 30 days of care, and it has been determined in a line of duty that their medical requirement occurred while they were on duty, then that soldier can apply to be entered in the WTU. The processing of admittance to the WTU is the same for an active duty or reserve component soldier. It still goes through the triad of leadership, the WTU commander, the medical treatment facility commander, and the senior mission command board to evaluate the entry of that soldier into the process.
Thank you. And what about the Navy then, Captain? Is it anything very different from that?
Yes, ma'am. We are, since Congress and the OSD gave the services the ability to kind of shape our programs toward our individual needs. I believe the last time that you heard testimony from us was in 2008, and Vice Admiral Robinson, who was the Surgeon General of the Navy at the time, came up and talked about a steady state for the Navy of about 250 cases. Through proactive outreach, we have expanded quite significantly since then. So 250 back in 2008, 1,000 in 2010, and today we've helped 3,283. Our active caseload on any given day is a little over 1,600. That's about 600 active duty service members and reservists, as well as around 1,000 transition service members in veteran status. So considerable program growth over the years as we've launched out. As far as the Navy's criteria for enrollment, we don't look at black and whites, but in generalities, about 2 back-to-back limb dues of a year period. If the recovery is going to take longer than that, that'll be considered a Category 2 and eligible for lifetime enrollment. Less than that, we'll continue to assist that service member with their individual needs, but in all likelihood, they're going to return to duty, and the upfront cost as far as support is going to be for the first few months, and then once we get them back on their feet, they'll return to the force. But we'll continue to monitor that service member. If anything changes as far as their prognosis or condition, we'll look at the case, and then they'll be eligible potentially for enrollment down the road.
Okay, thank you. I know my time is up, and perhaps for the record, I don't know, you want to have the Air Force and
Well, we
Marine
may have a
submit,
time to
or
come
go
back
ahead?
around.
Come back, okay, thank you.
Mr. Kaufman, recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm wondering if the respective branches of service could tell me what percentage of your caseload in the Wounded Warrior Program are PTSD?
So, sir, if you don't mind, I'll take that first one. So, again, 4,139 in the program right now in the Army. 1,929 of those have a PTS or behavioral health related issue. That could be a primary, secondary, or tertiary issue. So it could be, part of their medical challenge. So that's 47%.
Okay. What, out of your experience with the program, how many of those that have behavioral health issues or PTSD are returned to duty?
I'll have to take that for the record and see if we can get back, the specifics on that.
Okay.
I'm sure we track that to some degree.
And what is the regimen of treatment for those personnel?
Yeah, so it depends on how, obviously the complexity of the case and how it's treated. But within the Warrior Transition Units, they have the clinicians, behavioral health specialists, the social workers that can treat that. They also have the access to the primary care managers the doctors
Right.
that can administer the program to them there. So that's within the WTU, which is unique to what we do. This is not separate from the organization, so those clinicians are inside the formation with those soldiers on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, Captain.
Yes, sir, about 25% of our illnesses are PTSD. I'll have to take that for the record as far as the exact
Sure.
number, but that's a ballpark figure.
And return to duty?
I'll have to take that one for the record as well, sir.
Okay, and regimen of treatment?
Very similar. We provide non-medical support for Safe Harbor, so that's all done on the Bureau of Medicine and Surgery's side. But there are very good programs on that side that we collaborate with very closely for treatment.
General?
Yes, sir. Similar process in play, and probably about the similar numbers. I'll take for record, though, to get you the finite details with our occurrences. As you understand, our program's a little bit different as far as we use the unit organization to be basically the mothership of care for that wounded warrior and family and the local facilities. Probably about a quarter of our wounded warriors do have PTS. And if it's of a significant nature, or their injuries or their care require a significant nature, then we have patient squadrons. We have one on the East Coast, and we have one down in San Antonio and one on the West Coast that we can bring them for a significant amount of time to make sure that they're getting the world-class care that they deserve.
Okay, and I'm looking at the Army's numbers, and I'm looking at the Air Force numbers, and it seems that your numbers are larger than the United States Army's, if I'm right in that. I think the Army is 4,139, is that correct? And your number is
Correct.
1,000, well, not 1,165. Am I correct in that?
Yes, sir.
4,165.
We have 1,125 on active duty right now. 300 of them are due to combat related, and the other are due to illness and injuries. Yes,
It
sir.
is surprising, I mean, given the size of the United States Air Force relative to the size of the Army, that your numbers are actually larger than the United States Army's. Okay, well, I would like you to tell me, out of those PTSD, how many are returned to active duty now to the Marine Corps?
Yes, sir. The numbers of individuals who are reporting treatment for psychological health is around 59%. Now, the protocols that the Bureau of Navy Medicine and Surgery provide for treatment, as Captain Braining pointed out, is subject to the needs of that individual patient.
I'm sorry, what's the total number for Marine Corps for the Wounded Warrior Program?
Yes, sir. I reported that as 59%, but what that is the number of individuals surveyed who reported that they were receiving treatment for psychological health issues.
Okay, but I'm sorry, what's the total number on the Wounded Warrior Program, not just PTSD, the total number?
Right. So you must understand that the Marine Corps' approach to recovery care was initiated by General Conway, who stated that his desire was that Marines would recover with their parent unit so long as that unit could support them in recovery.
Okay.
The most needy cases would be brought, if you will, into residence at the Wounded Warrior Regiment. Presently, there are 501 Marines who are currently in residence with the Wounded Warrior Regiment. We have another 374 who are being supported at their parent unit by a recovery care coordinator.
Okay. So the ones in the Wounded Warrior Regiment, what percentage of those would be post-traumatic stress? Is that the 59%?
Yes, sir.
That's the 59%. And do you have any data as to how many who have processed through the Wounded Warrior Program who are claiming PTSD who have been returned to active duty, who have been diagnosed with PTSD who have been returned to active duty?
Most often, PTSD is a comorbid condition with some other disabling condition. That's why they were joined as an in-resident with the Marine Corps Wounded Warrior Regiment. So 97% of those who are joined to a Wounded Warrior Regiment element are disability separated or retired. So there's approximately a 3% return to duty.
Approximately 3%. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you. Mr. Cook, you're recognized for 5 minutes. Mr. Cook?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. I was obviously sleeping on a switch there and trying to digest some of those facts there. And the number of post-traumatic stress disorders is very, very high. First of all, I had the opportunity to visit a unit down there at Camp Lejeune when I was down there for 2nd Marine Division reunion. I was very impressed. And I got to be honest with you, and I'm going to make a statement now. You know, I was on the VA committee, and I was chair of the Veterans Committee in California. And it bothers me, and listening to you and some of the things in the past, I just think you do a better job of taking care of the troops. And I'm going to put you on the spot. If you believe that same thing, and anyone on the panel can ask this, and you all know about the problems with the VA and everything else, and I think we've dropped the ball on this in terms of the overall mission of taking care of the troops. And it seems like you still have that major concept why you're doing this. And just off the top of my head, I think you're doing a better job. Do you have any feelings? I know you probably don't want to throw the VA under the bus, but everybody else has, and they have had some serious problems. And a lot of us are concerned that we've got to, maybe it's just too large, too bureaucratic, but it seems to be working for you, and I think you're doing a great job. Anyone have any comments on that statement at all? Controversial as it may be.
Sure, I guess I'll jump in, being the infantryman at the table. So,
Good, so am I.
So I'd like to approach it this way, and unfortunately, I won't help you out in talking specific to the VA, but what keeps me up at night is the simple truth that, you know, we're going to be taking care of these soldiers and family members for 70 to 80 years. That's the fact of the matter. And I have them, we have them, for an extremely short amount of that time. And what concerns me is there's a lot of attention, there's a lot of focus into our programs. We're looking down, we all are looking down. But what concerns me is, what are we doing out in our communities? What are we doing to set the conditions for success? And I know I'm preaching to the choir, in our communities. And it's comprehensive in nature, because what we want to do is we want to make the soldiers and family members feel like they have something that they're transitioning to. We want to reduce that stress. And so it's more than just adaptive sports, adaptive reconditioning, Disabled Sports USA, Ride to Recovery. It's more than that. It's great companies that are, you know, improving their habitat inside the workplace for disabled people, not just veterans, Americans. It's the folks that are revamping the college campuses that come and talk to us about how they are creating veteran campuses, and how they're focusing more on how does a soldier who has PTS, how do they adapt to an educational environment. And so, you know, to me, that's where I would ask for help. That's where I would ask for focus in terms of what are we doing, because there's great islands out there in the communities and we know them, but what are we doing to join them together and make this more of a continental effort?
Anyone else have any responses?
Yes, sir, if I may. The Marine Corps is focused our efforts on ensuring that the Marine understands that they're going to be in our program for a couple of years, and as Colonel Toner indicated, we're going to be looking out after their welfare well into the future. But they're going to be veterans for the rest of their life, so we want to introduce them to the capabilities and ensure that they understand the capabilities that the VA has for them, and their competence and their desire to be of service to them.
I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm going to run out of time. Let me cut to the chase real quick. Why is it working for you and not the VA? Is it the concept that maybe they've missed the boat about taking care of troops and the military mission, or maybe I'm trying to get a simplistic answer to something that is a very, very difficult question, because I think you're absolutely right at everything you're saying.
Sir, if I may, this question came up in the Recovering Warrior Task Force back in April. And I think what works well for us is we do collaborate, as Mr. Williamson said, very closely with the VA. We have the Interagency Coordination Care Committee that we work with the VA on. And what works well for us is for those enrollees in our program that have hit veteran status, we have that hands-on care. So while the VA is providing those resources, we are an extra line of defense for that service member if there's any issues, and we can directly inject right into the VA and solve the problems. I have a VA Federal Recovery Coordinator on my staff that if anything comes up, I can go right to her, and she knows a touch point within the VA. So from our perspective, it's working very well, but that's for our population.
Thank you. Yield back.
Mr. O'Rourke?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate you asking after the WTUs in Texas. And Colonel Toner, thank you for your personal attention to this issue and specifically for visiting El Paso and Fort Bliss. And I wanted to ask you about that. And you touched on this in the answer to the chairman's question, but was there in fact cause for concern at the WTU at Fort Bliss?
So, sir, during the context of the reporting document, so 2009 to 2013, there were challenges at Fort Bliss, beyond a shadow of a doubt. Kind of multifaceted, cadre, soldiers, just programmatic type issues. What I found in my visit down at Fort Bliss, solid program, senior mission commanders fully involved down there, fully engaged, and their program is on track. As you know, demob site, so they've got a large population of reserve component soldiers down there, but a phenomenally engaged cadre and clinician staff down there, and I'm satisfied that the program is on track and where it needs to be.
And I do want to keep our focus forward, but if I could summarize, you were able to corroborate or confirm that there was indeed cause for concern. Could you just touch on what led to that and what changed so that you feel comfortable going forward?
Absolutely. So again, these reports that the reporter had, FOIA'd, these were our records. These were our oversight programs. So it's important to acknowledge that. So these were
We're talking about there was a TV broadcast station in Texas.
Right. So the investigative team, Scott Friedman in Texas. So again, the reports that he based his story on were our matters of record, our oversight mechanisms. And so the things that we use to change the program, to make the program better, the feedback that we get from the soldiers and family members. And more importantly, we address the soldier's needs. So if a soldier has a concern, the expectation is through the ombudsman that issue is going to be resolved. So since 2009 to now, our program has largely been built and adjusted based off of this type of input, soldier and family input. And that's
something, but I do want to make sure, and I apologize for interrupting you, I do want to make sure that you answer the question, what was going wrong? What were the specific challenges? Was it leadership? Was it processes? Was it procedures?
Right.
Lack thereof?
All of the above. So we're talking about a period of time from 2009 to 2013. So
Okay.
you had multiple issues over that time, everything from cadre members that did not have the right approach to the soldiers and the family members, to failure to implement procedures and policies that created some issues in the program down there.
And you feel those are resolved now
absolutely.
going forward? And I'll just tell you anecdotally, I took office in January of 2013, and family members of service members who were at the Bliss WTU brought these issues to our attention. And we saw press reports prior to this recent broadcast report from this past year. And essentially, you got the family member saying that the service member was being humiliated or being treated with disrespect. And then you got commanders saying, well, these are folks who in some cases just don't want to get in line, and we need to maintain discipline and order going forward. Some of them are going to redeploy and be reintegrated. We also found, when we dug a little deeper, to touch on Mr. Cook's point, that there were some problems at the VA because, you know, a certain percentage of these service members were going through the IDES process as they roll out into civilian life, and that we had a hang-up at this DRAS processing facility in Washington State, where we were not able to get the ratings, and these soldiers were literally languishing at the WTU there. And I think as that delay has come down and we're able to process these soldiers through the IDES process, I think that's improved things as well. I don't know if you want to comment on the VBA aspect of it.
Well, so you know, it all comes down to communication. That's the number one complaint that we get out there when we talk to soldiers and family members, is communicating through the process. And so there are those known entities that we can talk to them about and say, okay, this is known to us. But for a soldier and family member in transition, it's an extremely stressful time in their life. I mean, they're going through a medical process where it's stressful, and they're going through transition where it's stressful. So, you know, our ability to give them some sort of prediction on when they're going to be separated and transitioned in the civilian side of the house is extremely important to the soldier and family member, so they can make that part of their comprehensive transition plan. So, you know, from when I was a battalion commander in 2006 to when I was a brigade commander in 2009, you know, we've broken the window down to where we can give them a pretty good idea. 90 days, okay, we expect to get your ratings back, and we'll know this, and we'll be able to transition you at this point in time. It's been a pretty large accomplishment since 2006 when we couldn't predict that. But at the end of the day, it'd be nice to be able to tell the soldier, absolutely, we know you're going to transition on 6 June. It's going to happen on that day. Your ratings are going to come back. We can get some predictability into their lives, et cetera. I think you reduce that and you mitigate that by having that conversation with those soldiers and family members out there so they understand what part of the process is. There is also an appeal process where a soldier can choose to do that. So that's part of what we're doing out there. And I don't want to leave you, sir, with the idea that, you know, at Fort Bliss it was just a matter of replacing leaders and everything else. No, this is, you know, Fort Bliss sort of represents, in a good way, our ability to react to soldier input, family input, and cadre input and adjust the program. And so it's much more than changing leaders at Fort Bliss. It's readjusting our training program in San Antonio. It's readjusting the way that we select cadre members. It's our approach to the training that those folks get that allow them to adjust the program down there. So it's much more than just that.
Thank you.
Sir.
Mr. Jones?
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. And for those of us on this committee who have been here 20 years, we have really seen, and I want to commend the commitment made by not only you, but those before you, to see this Wounded Warrior program become what it is today. And nothing's perfect in government and outside of government, but you have done a magnificent job to get to this point. I have the privilege to represent the district in North Carolina, the home of Camp Lejeune Marine Base and Cherry Point Marine Air Station, and I've had a chance to visit the Wounded Warrior program many times down at Camp Lejeune, and I saw it from the old barracks to a new facility. It's been a tremendous commitment made by our government to those who have given so much physically and mentally. What I would like to ask each one of you, for those, and I know you say the numbers are down, which is a good thing, I would hope, that are still in the program from their mental and physical wounds from the Afghan and Iraq war. How many of those that are still in the program that are being medicated? Meaning that they are still on prescription drugs for their treatment of PTSD or TBI, or it could be another issue. If you could give me some idea of the percentage from the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marine Corps of those that are still in the Wounded Warrior program and the percentage of those that are being medicated. And if you don't have it now, if we could get it for the record, that's really one of my biggest concerns. Because I do still have a lot of communications, as certainly you have more than I do, but there are still those that are in much need, particularly with the PTSD of trying to be able to grip with their problems. And so if you could give me, maybe you know it now, if you could share it with me, I appreciate it.
Sir, I'll have to take that for the record and get you the number there. From a polypharmacy or pharmaceutical standpoint, you know, again, the Army program has come a long way. So we have that one primary care manager that manages the care of that individual soldier so that we reduce the aspect of polypharmacy. And the first approach being, you know, how can we do this pain management, or how can we do the management of your condition through things other than some sort of medicated approach.
Does anyone have any, the reason I'm asking this because a few of us for a number of years have been trying to get the opportunity of a soldier or Marine or Airman or Navy, whichever, the ability to, with the doctor's prescription to be treated by hyperbaric oxygen treatment. And it's been a frustration for many of us in the Congress, in both House and Senate, that we continue to get roadblocks, not from you. This is above the Wounded Warrior program, but of getting this treatment approved to the point that if prescribed by the doctor on base and the patient believes it could be helpful. So that's the reason I'd like to see these numbers that I've asked for, that if you could provide each service, how many are still in the Wounded Warrior program that are from the Afghanistan, or Iraq War, and they are still in the program, and how many are being medicated. I really would appreciate it very much.
Yes, sir, that's a great question. I'll take it for record and get you the details on that. But just our experience, I'm retiring Captain Mitchell Kiefer on the 20th of February down at Langley Air Force Base. Phenomenal airman. And he just went through that treatment. And he was telling me about the superb results that he got from that treatment. And so I see firsthand that from one case, he had very good results. So
I want to thank you for sharing that story of this committee, because I hope, Mr. Chairman, we talked about it earlier, that we will hold a hearing on the treatment programs and the success of hyperbaric oxygen treatment. And I've got stories too, but I really appreciate it. It's more important that you share that with this committee than me share the stories that I know. So thank you very much for that comment.
Mr. Waltz?
Well, thank you, Chairman and Ranking Member, and thank all of you. I'd kind of like to echo Mr. Jones' sentiments on this. As the current conflicts ramped up and as the need to approach our care of our warriors changed, I want to applaud all of you for going forward on that, doing the things. And I think all of us know this is a zero-sum proposition. If one warrior is left behind or if the care is substandard, we failed. And that's kind of the nature of it, but it doesn't dismiss the positive lessons, the things that are moving forward. I had the opportunity to visit Wounded Warrior Battalion West at Pendleton, and I think the American people would be pleased to see the facilities and the care and the outstanding treatment that is being delivered, and that's important. Colonel Toner, you hit on this point, and I know my colleagues here, Mr. Cook, Kaufman, O'Rourke, and myself, either previously or do now serve on the VA committee, and I've talked for decades till I'm blue in the face that the lack of seamless transition hampers us in so many ways, whether it was electronic medical record or it was a commitment of care on a continuum. And again, we have you here, but no one from the VA. Now, I do know they're embedded with you. There's things that happen, but I truly believe we're going to have to crack that. We're going to have to make that better. We're going to have to see it that it's all of our responsibilities. Because Colonel Toner, your comments were dead on. You're going to care for them in the big scheme of things for a relatively short amount of time. It's going to seem like an eternity to them if they're with you for 2 years and their family and waiting for orders and everything else that goes with it. But the true eternity is right, the next 70 years. And our inability to shape that policy holistically, I think it is hampering us, and I think it causes great frustration. So I just echo that as a statement. A couple of things I would ask, though. You mentioned this, and I'm concerned about this when I was out there and look at it. The folks that are providing the care providers in the care, how is their morale? How are they doing? And I know these are people that self-select in many cases because that's exactly where they want to be, doing exactly what they want. But this is tough work, and it wears on you. So if I could just get, I know this is subjective, but your assessment of how you see those providers from each of you.
Yeah, so from the Army perspective, you know, a majority of these folks, especially the cadre, are volunteers. They want to be a part of the program. At the end of the day, though, this is an extremely stressful environment, and we place the leaders and the clinicians into the environment. We get them training, but it's highly emotional, as you know, sir. I mean, you have a soldier that's going through a medical process. You have a family that's in transition. It's extremely emotional. It's 24/7 for the providers and the cadre. It's tough work, but it's very rewarding. It's a challenge. We have instituted in the Army that tour of duty for cadre members 24 months because it's so stressful. It requires such a commitment that we want to make sure that there's not some sort of fatigue associated with a cadre member as they're going through the program.
So there is a conscious effort to address it, and this is it's out there.
Yeah, and so one other thing too, if I may, Congressman, is the resiliency program that we put them through. So
Good.
we've added a week of training to the cadre course that puts them through the Army's, a portion of the Army's resiliency training, shows them how to cope, and also how to assess individuals that may be struggling. We also open up the Master Resiliency Training course, which is a much longer course and allows them to become trainers of that course within the formations.
Wonderful. Captain.
Yes, sir. I've talked to each of our staff members as they come through to take their assignments, and resiliency is one of the top things I talk about because it is such a challenging assignment. It's very rewarding to be able to give back to these wounded warriors that deserve our support so well. But it takes a lot out of you, and they're putting in a lot of extra hours to provide that quality care that they believe that the wounded warriors deserve, and resiliency is definitely something we got to look at. My concern is we have military that come in for 3-year orders, but then I also have government civilians that do this for 7, 8 years.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that really impress me because they keep at it. I continue to focus them on living well for themselves and just kind of assessing where they're at and talking to the other care providers to make sure that they're not internalizing these stresses.
So we found that the training is incredibly invaluable to all of our recovery care teams, and we just got done with 1-week session down at San Antonio with non-medical care managers, along with the recovery care coordinators, and the community Airman Family Readiness community leaders that help along assisting families. But we give them those resiliency skills during this week. They are a part of our Master Resiliency Trainer program as well. And then just the socialization and the commonality of bringing our 43 regions across the globe together to share challenges, to share insights, best practices and whatnot. We find that to be very valuable, and we're putting that into our battle rhythm. So we're doing that once a year. And then the policy folks, the folks that have levers, we midstream it at the summertime, and then we start it all over again for next January. We'll be doing the same thing. Yes, sir.
Mr. Williamson, I'm sorry my time cut you off. I may have to follow up with you and just ask you offline. That works. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's always interesting to be a freshman. You get to hear all the good questions, and then you're last. You know, some of the statements I'll make, and I'll leave it kind of open for how you want to answer this, but I always look at outreach. I just Googled and went on to websites and saw how you enroll into the program and what is needed and all of that. How much outreach are we doing? Obviously, if someone is wounded, then we probably enroll them right away. But if someone comes home and now is starting to go through some of the issues of PTSD or some other issues by being in the combat zone, what kind of outreach are we doing so that those individuals know that there is a place for them, there is a place where they can get treatment, there is a place where they can be treated? And secondly, what are we doing about funding? We're always talking about funding in one form or fashion. I'm sure we're going to be talking about that this year quite a bit. But there's something the American people never argue about, and that is taking care of our wounded warriors. There's never partisanship there. There's never a question about that. It's always they should get the care and they should get everything that they need and they deserve. So I'll just leave those both open to Colonel or Captain or a General if you want to answer any one of those.
Sure, I guess I'll start. So in terms of outreach, you know, it's a large Army issue, first of all. And so the Army's addressed this in many ways. We have embedded behavioral health now down in the combat brigades. We have medical providers in the combat formations out there. And so within the formations themselves, they have the ability to assess an individual and get them the help they need. A soldier who is medically evacuated from theater, from some sort of deployment. So the policy that's in place right now is that soldier, when they're medically evacuated, so let me give you an example, Fort Campbell. 101st Airborne soldier medically evacuated from Africa goes back to Fort Campbell. They are attached to the Warrior Transition Unit for an evaluation period. And so the primary care managers, those clinicians within that formation and that leadership within that formation will assess the soldier and determine whether or not that soldier can proceed back to their unit and receive the care they need, or they remain in the Warrior Transition Unit. So the other thing that units do is they do medical review boards, where the clinicians of the unit will sit down, they'll go through the formation, they'll take a look at their folks that are in the care process, and they'll make a determination of whether that individual needs to go in the Warrior Transition Unit. From a funding perspective, we're a fully funded program, and we have been the whole time. I'm fully funded for this year, and I don't see any lack in my ability to execute my mission and my mandate.
So there's a few ways. One is our proactive marketing and outreach, getting different advertising spots that are aired at base theaters, to putting local news stories in the base paper, to actually going out and meeting with the leadership of unit commands at the regions to get the word out about the program. I have done a tour around the U.S. to meet with the Reserve Component Command and all the NOSC COs to talk to them, especially on the reserve side. It's always a challenge to let them know that our services are available to them as well. And then finally is the personal casualty report. So anyone who is seriously wounded, ill, or injured, the unit commander is required to do a PCR on that individual, and we track all those as they come in, and that's the primary means for us to be notified that someone needs our services. But it is a continual challenge to get the word out and make people understand that we're more than just combat wounded, that 80% of our population is for seriously ill and injured as well. As far as resourcing, I brought the stats up at the beginning: 19% growth in 2013, 34% this past year. Basically, our enrollments, because of our successful marketing and outreach, is outpacing our resources. And in a resource-constrained environment, that is a challenge, but we are addressing that through the planning, programming, budgeting, and execution system, and are hopeful that we'll be able to catch up with the current need.
Yes, sir. As far as the outreach, it starts from the top, and it comes with the profession of arms and the ethos. And so General Welsh, in his statements last week, it's a top priority. It's a sacred trust. And so from the top down through the chain of command, the way our program is organized, with parent units taking care of their folks to the most extent possible, we stress that. And so I personally, at every new wing commander, group commander that's coming online, I personally have sessions with them in forums to talk through the program, talk through the strengths, the possible challenges and insights on keeping their eye and keeping a focus, and then we give them lists on who their wounded warriors are, who their recovery care coordinators are, phone numbers, and get them personally connected with all the people that are in charge of their program, so that once they hit the ground, they are part of the team immediately. As far as funding goes, it's a non-starter. I mean, that is a top priority and has not been an issue, even though we have growth as well as the other services.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sure. I don't know that we need to go back and go through the piece from the Air Force and the Marines, but if you wouldn't mind doing that for the record, just in terms of making sure that people, sort of the distinctions in terms of getting people into the program, that would be helpful. What I did want to ask you about is what you see are barriers for people being served today. Are there changes to the policies that would make a difference with the population as we see it going forward? Or do you think that we pretty much need to keep things as they are? One of the things that we've come a long way. I mean, I just want to really applaud the effort for resiliency and taking care of the care providers, because that's very, very important. I had the woman come to see me recently from the Heroes and Healthy Families program. Anybody? I don't know if anyone's familiar with that, but what they've tried to do is, from a really experiential point of view, share the experiences that folks have had getting help and assistance. At the beginning of all this, a number of years ago, the stories of people who just we're not seeking care. We're really right there and in front of us, and it took almost our senior leaders to show up at mental health clinics, frankly, and to sit there and to suggest to the troops that they needed help as well in order to get people to get the care that they needed. And so I'm just wondering, is there anything different now that we need to do to address those policies to make it more comfortable and less career inhibiting to be certain that people get the help that they need in a timely fashion? You're providing it, but sometimes people are not necessarily getting in line.
Well, man, thank you for the question, and I definitely can provide a little bit of information on that from the OSD level. One of the things we're consistently doing is reviewing our policies to make sure that they meet the requirements that our service members are going to need in the future. We also want to ensure that they are inclusive as possible to be able to provide the services that any service member may need as he or she feels that they may benefit rather from the services that are provided within the WTU, from all of the services. One of the things that we consistently do is again, a quality assurance of our programs, ensuring that the programs meet the needs of our service members. And the services, again, based off of their unique way that they conduct their execution of their programs for their particular service members, I think they may be able to elaborate a little bit more on that. However, we are consistently reviewing our policies from an OSD standpoint to make sure that they do meet the requirements and the new population that we are working with.
Okay. Does anybody see the problem that we had with individuals who believe, with soldiers, sailors, who believe that seeking help would hurt their career in the future? Is that still an issue out there?
Yeah, so, ma'am, again, thanks for the question. So, unfortunately or fortunately, however you want to characterize it, what almost 14 years of conflict has given us is a large population of soldiers and leaders who understand PTS and behavioral health issues. And it has significantly reduced the stigma associated with it, to the point that leaders and those that they are leading out there understand it and understand the treatment and the help they can get to it, and understand the fact that we have folks walking in our formations now that are dealing with it and doing just fine in terms of their ability to perform. From an experience perspective, you know, my own experience, you know, prior to going to combat, I probably was, you know, just didn't understand it. Thought maybe I understood it, didn't understand it. Going to combat, first tour, 16 months, I get it, I understand it. And so you have this generation out there right now that understands it. The fact that we have embedded behavioral health inside our formations, I was one of the first brigade commanders to get that, and I'll tell you, that's a phenomenal achievement, a leap, just an incredible leap. Where I have an individual inside my formation that I call Bob or Sue or whatever, and that I can go to and talk, and I can address my problem. More importantly, I have a squad leader that pushes me in that direction because they understand I'm suffering, they understand I'm going through that challenge. So the big challenge is to not lose that, is to maintain that kind of understanding, and to make sure that the new generation that's coming in that has not had that experience born out of war understands that, and that we don't lose the funding and the policies and the procedures that we have in place. At the end of the day, we're hard on ourselves. We're going to constantly address the policy and the program and make it right.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I want to thank you all that was the vote for votes. So I want to thank you all for taking the time to be here today, and more importantly, thank you for everything that you're doing to take care of our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marine, and Coast Guardsmen that need the care that your folks are providing and that they deserve. So there being no further business before the subcommittee, we stand adjourned.